book, The Devil at My Doorstep. David Bego is here. You can go to thedevilatmydoorstep.com to get more on the book, but it's his personal experience battling Andy Stern and the SEIU from late 2006 until present day, as he runs a multi-state business that dealt with the SEIU, and they challenged, and he didn't buckle, went against them, and had some success, and he talked about it in that book. And now, today, we're going to talk about what he posted on Breitbart, or actually BigGovernment.com, the Big Labor's Scorched Earth campaign in Ohio, a preview of Obama's reelection campaign. And Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. Glad to be back.
Well, it is good to have you back, and I guess we're left scratching our heads in Ohio. Now, I know there's a lot of things that are different. You know, first of all, the reforms, the budget repair reform bill, Wisconsin able to get installed and starting to see results. Ohio really didn't have it. They didn't get it installed. People didn't see what would happen, and it sounds like they put up a pretty good campaign of, showing a house burning and no fire department coming up, ambulances not picking up people with heart conditions. So they scared the folks into voting.
Well, that's right, and I have to tell you up front that your Governor Walker did a good job of being prepared before he introduced his bills, and he also did one other thing different. He didn't include the firefighters and police in that, and that helped him a lot because he didn't get resistance from that sector. Over in Ohio, they included everybody. They really weren't prepared, and the governor there didn't do his homework on what would happen with big labor and how they would go after it and spend, $30 million to get the bill defeated.
Now, I had heard that, my brother is an Ohio resident, lives in Cincinnati. He says now that unless they can get some things implemented, what it's going to mean is not only this governor is not going to raise taxes in Ohio, so it actually means that these people, the unions, fought for this and now are going to probably face layoffs.
Well, that's right, and that's the other end of it is that they've got the same problem that you've had in Wisconsin, and they've got to either find money somewhere or they got to cut costs, and you can already see it happening over there. And I think you're going to see a big backlash. I think Ohio's going to be an interesting state to watch, as yours is, because quite honestly, Wisconsin, if you guys hang in there and the recall doesn't work against Walker, and you continue to show that you can save money and do things the right way, you're going to be a model for the country. And I don't know if you saw the article in the Washington Examiner the other day talking about some of your school districts, but like the Heartland Lakeside School District, they're going to save about $700,000 by going through a different healthcare provider instead of the one that's run by the unions.
Yeah, there was a lot of examples like that, Dave, and one of the biggest ones is Kaukauna, that we're looking at several $1 million deficit, and with the governor allowing them to have more local control, including the health, they actually turned that around to a $1.5 million surplus. They were able to keep all teachers, actually hire more, and install merit pay. So I don't understand why people want to regress and go back to the old way. I mean, is it because they think that somehow the teachers are being wronged, or why do you think? I know the unions, what they want, it's all about power and control.
Well, that's what it is, and that's the bottom line. It's the big labor bosses. It's not the rank and file, because many teachers, even here in Indiana, we don't have a right to work law. People have to belong to the teachers union, but there's a lot of them you talk to that would just as soon not belong to the union, and would like to have more freedom in how they teach their classes and how they run their part of the business. So it's not the rank and file people. It's the big labor bosses. They're dinosaurs, and they're looking at extinction, and they're going to do everything they can to avoid it. And that's what it really comes down to.
I would like to see the ability, and maybe this is what's happening now, is if they're not a union, but if they are a union, let each school district be its own union and let the teachers and all the union people negotiate with the head of the HR for that district And what the HR directors usually do was they will sample all around the country positions that these teachers have, what their salaries are, what their benefits are. And I know when I worked down at Indian Hills College, our HR person would do the same. We weren't the highest in the state, but we weren't the lowest. We were usually in the middle to a little above. So we always were compensated well, but they did it by looking at other organizations and how they were paying people in these different positions. So to me, that's the way to go, not by some blanket union that you need to increase this or that.
Well, that's right, and there's another side to that. It's not always about money and compensation and benefits. It's about enjoying your job and the atmosphere you're in and all that. And when you're in an atmosphere where you're being threatened and intimidated, or being put in a position where you can't teach the way you want to, it's not fun. And a lot of these people don't like that. And what's really interesting, and I saw this article yesterday, because I'm kind of a clearinghouse now. I get people send me stuff from all over the place.
Yes.
But in Pennsylvania, the SEIU just settled a contract, and that's the union I fought, with a hospital out there, where in the contract, in the bargaining agreement, the employees 3 times a year have the opportunity to opt out of the bargaining unit and not have to pay dues. That's huge, because all of a sudden they're recognizing the fact that, hey, these people need to have an opportunity to make their own decisions, number one. And number two is, if the union's not doing their job, maybe they shouldn't be there.
Now, refresh the people again with your business, which is the professional cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Are you unionized?
No.
No, okay.
We're not.
But, so your employees are happy with what that you're presenting to them. What would be reasons they would need to go to the union? That you're working them too long, the conditions are bad, the pay for their skills when they compare to other parts of the country are below standard? What would be the reasons, and how do you meet those and overcome them?
Well, all of those are part of the equation, the things you just listed. And we as a company have tried very hard over the years to make sure that we treat our employees well, we make sure they have the best equipment and working conditions, and like I say, they're compensated well. But that's really not what it's all about. What it's about is forced unionism. It kind of goes back to the big labor bosses. They don't have anything to sell anymore. Today's employers, for the most part, understand they need to take care of their employees. Now, there's always bad apples out there. There's bad apples in every profession, even the clergy. We know that. But most employers know they have to take care of their people and do the best they can by them. And on top of that, we have government agencies like OSHA and NLRB and EEOC and all those that help protect people. And on top of that, in today's social media world, our almost instantaneous electronic world, if there was something really bad going on, don't you think it would be spread across the country in seconds?
How would you respond as the owner if some of your employees decided they wanted to try to institute?
Oh, I don't have any problem at all. See, that's the thing you don't understand. This isn't about denying people choice. This is about forcing people. And like in our case against the SEIU, I offered to have an election many, many times. In fact, I took an article out in the Indianapolis Star and said, SEIU, fish or cut bait. Let's have an election. And if you guys win, I'll live with it. If you lose, go away.
Are as many major employers in the country as open-minded about that as you are?
I believe so. We do business with companies all across the country. And I don't see, again, you have bad apples, anywhere you go, whether it's politics, business, like I said, clergy. They're just bad apples, and that's unfortunate. But for the most part, most employers, if you want to form a union, okay, fine, let's go through the process and let's do it right. And if you win, fine, we'll live with it.
The thinking here in Wisconsin was, by the one side, is that if workers were given a choice, they would not want to pay the union dues and be members of a union. Yesterday we had a story. 6 of Wisconsin's state employee unions are keeping their official status. 96% of those who voted in each group chose to remain certified as a union. It included states' attorneys, prosecutors, building trades, information research, and healthcare. So the idea that if you gave these people a choice, they would opt out of their unions isn't applying across the board.
But they have a choice, Tom. That's the difference.
And he suggested that the SEIU is giving people a choice in Pennsylvania and probably other places as well.
And that's a choice. But
well, that is very unusual with the SEIU. I think they were, in the negotiations. That contract had been out for many years, and I think to get the contract done, and they had to agree to something like that. But it's a start, and it's the first time that I know of anywhere in the country that I've seen it. Number one. And as far as what you said about the people in Wisconsin, that's great if they had a free choice to do it. But let me tell you something, Tom, because I've been through the other side where we've had an election, okay? And it was at a large manufacturing plant we do, and they presented us with a petition for an election through the National Labor Relations Board. And by law, you're supposed to have the election in 42 days. And I told my attorneys and the union, I said, that's fine. I want the election in 42 days. I don't want it delayed. I want it done, and I want it done right. I don't want people intimidated. I did go down and talk to our people. We had 25 full-time people in this facility. And I went down, I sat down and talked to them, and I was just straight up with them. I said, look, you got to understand that just because you signed a union card for an election doesn't mean that's the way you have to vote. And we talked about some other things and that, and, the 42 days and what would be going on and all that. And at the end of the meeting, I had a bunch of the women, because half our staff was women, came up to me. And they said, Mr. Vigo, thank you for telling us that we didn't have to vote for the union. We didn't know that. We thought because we signed the cards, we'd have to vote for the union and to stay in the union if that's what happened.
Why would they sign the cards if they didn't want to be in the union?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Tom. And
because you think their arms were twisted.
That's exactly what they said. They said the union thugs followed them around in the plant and, kept pestering and bugging them and intimidating them. And finally, they gave up and they signed the cards because they were afraid and they didn't want to be bothered anymore. And that's the problem, Tom, that you don't understand that goes on behind the scenes. Businesses don't do that, Tom. Big labor bosses do that.
Well, see, Tom has...
Businesses don't sit down with their employees and say that if they form a union or join a union, they're going to find a way to get rid of them. That doesn't happen.
Tom, again...
That doesn't happen?
Tom is Occupy 70s.
Tom, it may happen. Like I said, there are some bad apples, but for the most part, generally, no.
Yeah. See,
Tom, I have to tell you, if you believe that, you're out of touch.
Well, there's a lot of people that agree with that.
Because obviously most big employers would prefer to have a union and than to not have a union, and aren't going to fight it every step of the way.
No, Tom, it isn't about that at all. It's about letting people make their own decision. And most big employers, if you have a union that's open and does the right things for the people, it's not a problem.
Yeah, well, see, Tom has a problem with, he can't believe there are actually union forces that are, let's just say, urging strongly people to join the union, but he does believe there are bosses only out for the bottom line that will crush their employees if it means better results at the bottom line. Is that right, Tom?
Crush is kind of a violent word.
Right.
But,
see, Tom doesn't understand folks like yourself, Dave, that own and run big businesses that don't care for their employees. I mean, you care for your employees, and Tom just doesn't believe that.
Well,
I didn't say that. And I don't know how big his business is. I'm sure it's not as big as the Bank of America's and the Exxon Mobils of the world. And certainly there are business people all over the country that treat their employees well. But
well, who in the heck are you talking about?
When I talk about big business, I'm talking about the ones we've seen the examples of that do only care about the bottom line and short-term profit over and above anything else, whether it's the environment, their employees, or even their customers.
Who are you talking about, Tom? Give me an example.
Talk about the big banks. Talk about the major polluters in this country who try to get around every possible rule from the EPA and government agencies that they can. Talk about the people that spend millions of dollars in lobbying money to try to get rules and regulations out of the way.
See what I got to put up with all the
Those
time,
are the
Dave?
people I'm talking about.
Well, but Tom, you're talking about politics now. You're not talking about what actually people do and how they handle their people. And we could go on. The environment's a whole different situation. You're talking to a guy that's got a master's degree in microbiology and a bachelor's degree in biology, and environmental. We ought to be good environmental stewards, but the truth is that global warming is a farce. And I'm sorry, Tom, but
Tom,
if you had the training I've had, you'd understand that. Okay.
Tom reads the Daily Cause and believes it.
Now,
So.
the argument of how much man is creating global warming may be up for debate, but the idea that there's no global warming, and if you're saying that, then
Tom, there could be, but the thing is, let me give you a short example. Okay. Do you realize that when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, that they roamed as far north as Canada, and that there were palm trees in Canada? Do you think it was warmer then and man wasn't around? We're arrogant if we think that we can control the environment. Again, we need to be good stewards. We need to make sure that we control pollution and we do the right things moving forward, find different energy sources. I agree with all that. But to the degree that these people take it, no.
I would respectfully submit that if you're denying global warming, then you're the one that's out of touch here.
Oh, my gosh. See how arrogant Tom is?
It's not me.
Oh, you are so arrogant, it's incredible.
It's not just me. The majority of scientific opinion in this country, and even people on the right, are starting to see that the opposition they had to global warming was in the wrong column.
Tom, again, it was a lot warmer back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, and there was no problem.
Right. It's no good, Dave. You can't get through that skull of his.
It's simple history.
Yeah. Read Dr. Lasseter's book, The Liberal Mind, and that's the only way you can understand Tom. So, but let's before I let you go, let's talk. What do you recommend the people out there of Wisconsin that are going to be going through this? First of all, I'm saying decline to sign, because we don't need this recall that could bring in. They're saying could mean $100 million spent on a recall election, all spurred by unions and then the people trying to fight unions. This is horrible for Wisconsin.
Well, it is, and again, it's divisive to the population and everything else. I think you guys have a great governor. I think he understands where you need to go. The truth is, we need to give people freedom of choice. We need to give them a chance to make it on their own abilities and self-determination, and we need to get people out of their way. And one of the things that I'm concerned about in Wisconsin, just like in the election coming up next year, is the big labor bosses are going to come in. They're going to spend a lot of money, and it's going to be a scorched earth type of thing. And you're going to hear all the negative publicity and the misinformation, and there's going to be intimidation going on out there. They're going to go out and they're going to find people and they're going to intimidate them into signing union cards, just like they did my employees in that particular plant, or have them sign cards for the recall. Okay. And it's going to be ugly, and it's sad just because people are trying to preserve their way of life, and instead of saying, maybe what I ought to be doing is finding a better way of doing what I'm doing instead of intimidating other people. Right.
All right. Well, Dave, you have a good Thanksgiving holiday, and we'll definitely keep up with you again. Folks, go to thedevilatmydoorstep.com, learn a lot more about his book and what has happened, and also read his blog. Thank you, Dave.
Well, thanks, Pat. Appreciate it, Tom. It's always great to talk to you, too.
All right. Bye-bye.